When I discovered ready-mades, I thought to discourage aesthetics. In Neo-Dada, they have taken my ready-mades and found aesthetic beauty in them. I threw the bottle rack and the urinal into their faces as a challenge, and now they admire them for their aesthetic beauty. That's funny. I find that funny. Yeah, no, like that's the frustration of some of these artists where it's like, no, no, you're not supposed to think of these as art. You're not supposed to think of this as beautiful. And people actually do. I've seen this firsthand where an artist is their intent is to make something so ugly or so out of the norm, and then people, like, you'll see people cry because they think it's such a beautiful experience, and I can understand the frustration of those contemporary artists, like, no, you're not supposed to be moved. In his insistence that art should be driven by ideas above all, driven by ideas, I've talked about this, Duchamp is generally considered to be the father of conceptual art. His refusal to follow a conventional artistic path, matched only by a horror of repetition, which accounts for the relatively small number of works Duchamp produced in the span of his short career, ultimately led to his withdrawal from the art world. In later years, Duchamp famously spent his time playing chess, even as he labored away in secret at his last enigmatic masterpiece, which was only unveiled after his death. Now, I find this fascinating if this is true, because if you're gonna poke fun at art, and if you're going to express art in a very anti-art way or a very antithetical way, you're gonna withdraw from art. You're gonna cease to become an artist. Why would you poke fun of the vocation? I'm not saying that you have to be a zealot or be absolutely passionate about art 100% of your time on this earth, but this idea of, like, I'm going to question art, I'm going to challenge art, I'm going to be antithetical, I'm going to sneer at art, and then it says here his refusal to follow the conventional path, matched only by a horror of repetition, which accounts for the relatively small number of works he produced in the span of his short career. He ultimately, withdrew from the art world. That's very interesting. So he was not prolific in that he produced a lot of different pieces, and he had disdain of repetition, and what a conundrum for an artist to put themselves in that position, where it's like, I hate repetition, I hate following a line of taste. I don't want an artistic taste. I don't want an artistic signature. I don't want people to know me for this. I've got to be new every time. I've got to be novel every time. It's kind of this weird fascination and obsession of the novel, the feeling of novel. And I would just say to the artists out there, especially to the contemporary artists out there, just relax. Have fun. Art is supposed to be enjoyable. This was a sentiment, I know by at least one of my friends at college, back in Seattle, where you were supposed to, as an artist, you were supposed to go through this kind of martyrdom, like, where art was supposed to be an ever grueling process. And I'm really glad I snapped out of that, within, pretty much after graduating with my master's. I snapped out of that. I was like, I'll take the tools I've learned. I'll take the compositional techniques that I've learned and the practices I've learned, and I'll apply it to something that I can really enjoy. So I kind of feel bad for people like Duchamp. I'm not saying this in any way mocking him. But no, if you're going to be antithetical, if you're going to be against art as an artist, you're going to withdraw from it. That's a natural course of events. That's cause and effect right there. So pretty interesting, and pretty interesting that he was frustrated that people thought his ready-mades were supposed to be a thing of beauty. We'll talk about his accomplishments. So the first thing is, coined by Duchamp, the term ready-made came to designate mass-produced everyday objects taken out of their usual context and promoted to the status of artworks by mere choice of the artist. So his most famous ready-made is the urinal. It's mass-produced, it's functional, it's for society. As good as indoor plumbing, it just needs to be there. But he wanted to kind of scoff at the notion that, that rather than an art piece of some craftsmanship or of some intrinsic value be placed on a pedestal, he wanted a urinal. No, I mean, obviously it's crude. It's a crude topic on its own, just how, urinals function. But also, he wanted to put something that was easily replicated, that was easily mass produced. So in place of a very original, very special artwork is something that is mass produced, something that is no different from another thing. It's one of thousands or millions. Concept is very interesting. But again, it's kind of that kind of sinister idea of I think it's kind of sinister. It's like, where I was like, well, I don't like art, so therefore I'm going to make this my art piece. Second point is Duchamp rejected purely visual, or what he dubbed retinal pleasure, deeming it to be facile, in favor of the more intellectual, concept-driven approaches to art making, and for that matter, viewing. He remained committed, however, to study the perspective and optics, which underpins his experiments with kinetic devices, reflecting an ongoing concern with the representation of motion in machines common to futurist and surrealist artists at the time. I find this good. I mean, I think art should be intellectual. And I think it should be concept driven. I do think it should be concept driven, but the concept, the idea took precedence. It took precedence over the art piece itself. Whereas I say, no, have it be concept driven, have it be a great idea, but it must be executed well. And I think if you have that, you have your long lasting art piece. R says the fountain art is disgusting but oddly beautiful. Yeah, and I think Duchamp, based on his quotes, he didn't like that. He didn't like it to be taken as something beautiful. But that's the beautiful thing. See, I've been saying this. This is proof. Duchamp, Marcel Duchamp is proof of what I've been saying these past weeks. Is that you don't have to worry about narcissism as an artist. You don't have to worry about ego, because people are going to interpret your art in ways you don't want them to interpret. It's like, oh, you're not supposed to see this as beautiful. Sorry. People are going to see it as beautiful. So that's pretty funny.